My name is Luis from a small town in West Virginia. I had a strange experience when I stayed at my uncle's place in Chicago. He's my dad's younger brother. Our family's originally from West Virginia, but my uncle married someone from Illinois. That's how I ended up in the city, because I needed my Uncle Victor's help finding work. At first, he really came through for me. He got me a job as a cleaner at a hospital. I didn't go to college, so my options were pretty limited. But I ended up having a misunderstanding with one of the senior staff, and I was the one who got fired. I apologized to Uncle for wasting the opportunity he gave me. He said it was all right. He promised he'd help me find something new. I didn't just sit around at their house doing nothing, mostly because I was shy around my aunt and their kids. That's why I made it a point to go out every day to look for work. But luck just wasn't on my side. Every place I asked either wasn't hiring or had just filled a position. Eventually, I ran out of money to keep commuting around. I talked to Uncle Vic about it and told him I might just go back home. But he stopped me. He told me not to give up so easily. "Who knows?" he said. "The right job might come to you when you least expect it." He suggested I take a break. I asked him what kind of break he meant. "Just relax for a while," he said. "Stop stressing about job hunting and take a breath until things start falling into place." I told him I felt bad for Aunt Mel. They already had 7 kids to feed, and now I was just one more mouth at the table. But he told me not to worry. I could make it up to them once I landed a job. Since Uncle Vic gave me the green light, I followed his advice and tried to rest. But it wasn't easy. When he was out working, I always felt awkward moving around the house. It felt like Aunt Mel was watching my every move. I couldn't even sit down to watch TV without worrying that she might think I was just being lazy. I tried to help out around the house, of course, but with so many of them pitching in, there wasn't much left for me to do. Aunt Mel did tell me to relax and stop feeling like a burden. She said she could see how uncomfortable I was, and honestly, she was right. I really did feel that way. Another thing I wasn't too fond of was the noise. The house wasn't very big, and 3 of the kids were still toddlers. Then they had 2 teenagers, and the eldest 2 were already adults. The place could get really chaotic, and the constant chatter and yelling overwhelmed me sometimes. So I started asking Aunt Mel if I could go out for walks, hoping I might stumble upon a job opportunity nearby. I only walked as far as I could. Bus fare was out of the question by then. She said it was fine as long as I stayed safe. She reminded me to steer clear of trouble, especially from the guys loitering on the corners. She said she didn't mind me being jobless, but what she wouldn't tolerate was me bringing problems into their home. I promised I wouldn't. I knew she was worried I might fall in with the wrong crowd and end up in a mess. I didn't want to disappoint her, so when someone from the corner called out to me to have a drink, I just nodded and motioned that Aunt Mel had sent me on an errand. Some of them already knew I was just staying at my uncle's place. I was still staying with Uncle. The people around the neighborhood probably started recognizing me. They even seemed interested in befriending me, but I could tell they weren't the best crowd. I'd often see them hanging out at the corner, drinking and playing cards. I knew right away they weren't going to be a good influence on me. One day, while walking around, I ended up in front of an abandoned building. It wasn't particularly big, but it looked like it had been neglected for years. It was wide open. Most of the walls were gone. If you sat on the broken ledge on the 2nd floor, you could see the traffic passing on the street across. I thought it looked like a decent place to rest, so I went inside. Wild plants had taken over the area, even the interior. From a distance, you wouldn't even realize a building was there. It was almost completely hidden by the overgrowth. As soon as I stepped in, I felt this strange sadness come over me. I don't know why. Maybe I just started wondering what kind of life once filled that place before it was abandoned. Was it an office? Were the people there happy? There were rooms with broken desks and chairs. It looked like an old office space. I've always felt a strange kind of regret when I see abandoned places, whether it's a house or a building. I sat down on the ledge I spotted earlier. Just as I thought, the view was wide. I could see the street clearly, cars constantly passing. As I sat there, a sudden gust of wind brushed against my ear. I turned quickly, but no one was there. I didn't think much of it at first. Being from the countryside, I'd experienced eerie things before. But then it happened again. This time, I stayed alert. Then I heard a voice, a soft one. I turned to find the source and saw a young girl standing behind me. She looked younger than me, wearing a simple house dress. Her hair was long and braided neatly. She looked clean and well kept, not at all like someone who had been living rough. She smiled at me and asked what I was doing there. I didn't answer. Instead, I asked her the same thing, what she was doing in a place like that. It wasn't safe for a young girl to hang out in abandoned buildings. She told me she was used to the place, that she lived there. I didn't press her on what she meant by lived there. I figured she just meant she spent a lot of time there, maybe even saw it as her hideout. I told her she should probably go home, that someone might be looking for her, but she ignored what I said. She introduced herself as Charlotte. I introduced myself too, but when I reached out to shake her hand, she didn't take it. Instead, she turned and walked away, saying she was glad to have met me. As she walked off, she kept talking, saying she hoped it wouldn't be the last time we met and that I should come by more often. I don't know what came over me, but I froze for a moment. When I finally looked in the direction she went, I realized there were no stairs there. I searched for her, calling her name over and over, but she was gone. I scratched my head and looked up toward the third floor. I hadn't figured out where the stairs to that level were yet, but I didn't bother checking anymore. It was getting dark. I needed to head back. Aunt might be worried, and Uncle could be home by now. I just figured maybe I missed her leaving while I zoned out. Before stepping out, I glanced back at the building. The silence was deafening. I knew she wasn't there anymore, so I just kept walking. When I got home, Uncle was already there. He asked where I'd been. I told him I was out job hunting, and that I hung out for a bit at the old abandoned building nearby. He warned me not to spend time there, that shady people might be lurking around and I could get into trouble. I asked him if he believed in ghosts. I don't even know why I asked. It just came out. I was thinking, what if that girl? What if Charlotte wasn't even real? But Uncle just shook his head. He didn't believe in ghosts. Said he believed that when a person dies, their soul either goes to heaven or hell. But he did say he believed in evil spirits. I didn't tell him about Charlotte. I figured maybe I was just overthinking everything. Days went by and nothing changed. Still no job, still wandering around. Eventually, I found myself walking back toward that abandoned building. From outside, I could already see her, Charlotte, sitting at the same spot I had during my first visit. She saw me and smiled, even from a distance. I decided to stop thinking she might be a ghost. She looked so alive, too real to be anything else. I climbed the stairs, and before I even reached the top, she met me halfway. She said she thought I wasn't coming back because I hadn't shown up for days. I asked her why she'd been waiting for me. She just smiled and said, "No reason. I just think of you as a friend." I laughed. "Friend? We've only met once." She just smiled again. So I told her, "If we're really friends, tell me more about you. Why you're always here." She looked away, staring out the window. She said she didn't really know where her family was anymore. She didn't want to talk about it. She just wanted us to be friends. I didn't know what to say, so I let it go. Even though we spent time together, she barely said anything. She just watched me as I told her about my life. I guess I trust too easily because I ended up telling her a lot about myself. That was the start of us seeing each other regularly in that old building. I'm not sure why I was okay with it, but I was. And believe it or not, there was never anything romantic on my end. It was just friendship. I guess I saw her more like a younger sister. One night, Uncle came home with good news. He found me a job. One of his friends, a former sailor who had started a small restaurant, was hiring. Uncle recommended me, and I got in. I was thrilled to be working again. Because of that, I stopped going back to the abandoned building. I got busy with work. But honestly, I still thought about Charlotte now and then. I wondered if she was waiting for me. So one night, after work, I decided to stop by. It was already late, so I figured she wouldn't be there. I stayed outside and just stared at the building. Then I saw her, right there, sitting at our usual spot. I was shocked to see her there. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I couldn't help but ask myself, what was she doing there at that hour? Worried, I rushed inside the building. Even though I was scared, my concern for her was stronger. But when I reached the second floor, she was gone. I called out, thinking maybe she was just hiding from me. Maybe she was upset or disappointed because I hadn't shown up recently. Still, I couldn't understand why she'd wait around so late at night. I wanted to keep looking for her, but the fear started creeping in. A cold gust of wind brushed against my skin, and that was enough for my feet to back away on their own. I hurried downstairs and rushed out of the building. As I turned to look back one last time, I saw her again, standing exactly where I'd seen her before. I froze. Then instinct kicked in. I ran. I didn't go near that building again. In fact, I even changed my daily route to avoid it completely. But ever since that night, I kept dreaming about Charlotte. She looked angry with this piercing stare. She was always standing in that same abandoned building, in the exact same spot. I'd wake up out of breath every time. At first, I dismissed it. I told myself I was just worried about her. Scared, yes, but also concerned. After all, I'd always thought of her like a sister, a friend. And I knew she was always hanging around that place. A place I now realized was dangerous. But the dreams didn't stop. Night after night, they haunted me. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. Ghost or not, I had to see her and talk to her. I had to find out what was going on. It was my day off anyway, so I had time. I arrived at the building early, hoping to catch her. But she wasn't there. I stood still and listened. The place was as eerily quiet as it had always been. Still, I had this uneasy feeling crawling over me. As I walked around, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Strange symbols on the walls. Triangles, circles. And inside them, drawn eyes. It looked like something from a cult. My heart raced. I thought maybe someone else had gotten in. Someone who didn't belong. I worried for Charlotte's safety. If strangers were using this place for weird rituals, she could be in danger. I took photos with my phone, planning to show them to Uncle Victor, or maybe even my grandfather once I got home to West Virginia. I'd already been planning a trip back home for my mom's birthday after my next paycheck. I thought maybe Grandpa would know something. He was always interested in symbols and old beliefs. While I was still examining the wall markings, another cold gust of wind wrapped around me. I turned, and there she was, Charlotte, smiling at me. I was surprised. I hadn't even heard her approach. The only thing I managed to say was, "Hey, how are you?" She walked toward me and said, "Don't leave again, I need you." I froze. Why didn't she want me to leave? So many questions were running through my head, but none of them made it out of my mouth. I didn't even get to tell her about the dreams. Fear took over when she suddenly wrapped her arms around me in a hug. I tried to pull away. I grabbed at her arms, pushing them off of me. As soon as I was free, I dashed for the stairs. I raced down, but when I reached the first floor, she was already there. That's when I knew she wasn't ordinary. She couldn't be. She was a ghost. Somehow she had moved faster than I could comprehend. She was standing there, blocking the exit. I had no choice. I had to face her. I asked her, straight up, "What are you? Are you a ghost? If your soul is restless, I'll pray for you." But she looked me dead in the eye and said, "I don't want anything, except you." That's when I truly felt fear like never before. Back home in the countryside, I'd once seen something strange with my grandfather. Something we thought was a shapeshifter. Grandpa was a kind of healer, someone who did spiritual work. But even then, I wasn't this terrified. Maybe because I knew Grandpa could handle it. This was different. I had no idea what to do. All I could think of was to run. She was standing right there in front of me, and I was ready to push her aside and make a break for the door. But as I passed her, I couldn't even touch her. It felt like I had just passed through a thick, freezing gust of wind. I stopped in my tracks. Just for a second. I didn't even look back. I bolted, running as fast as I could. I didn't care if people stared at me along the way. When I got back to my uncle's house, my Aunt Mel freaked out when she saw how pale I looked. Uncle Victor was at work, so she took care of me. She kept asking, "What happened? Where did you come from? Why do you look so pale?" I couldn't answer right away. So she brought me a glass of water. Once I had calmed down a bit, I told her everything, starting from the first day I started hanging out near that abandoned building, all the way to what happened just earlier. She shook her head. "Why would you go there?" she asked. "People around here avoid that place. Folks say someone haunts it." She said the girl I mentioned, Charlotte, was probably a ghost, and since I had befriended her, she didn't want to let me go. I even told her about the dreams I kept having about Charlotte. My aunt decided we needed to see a spiritual healer, but I told her that my grandpa back home in Arkansas was a faith healer, someone who could probably explain everything and help me get rid of this. She knew I was planning to go home anyway for my mom's birthday after my next paycheck, so she didn't push the idea of finding someone local. But she warned me firmly never to go back to that abandoned building again. It had been empty for decades for a reason. The dreams didn't stop. In fact, one night I saw Charlotte inside the house. I was in the kitchen cooking. From where I stood, I could see the bathroom door, left slightly open. I looked up and there she was, standing there, just staring at me, cold, angry. I dropped the spatula in my hand, almost knocked over the frying pan with the fish and hot oil. I caught it just in time. The spatula hit my foot, but I didn't care. I screamed. My cousins came running, asking what happened. I pointed to the bathroom where I saw her, but there was no one. They didn't know anything about Charlotte. I had only told Aunt Mel, and she had just mentioned it to Uncle Victor. The whole house got freaked out that night. Even though I had a week left before I was supposed to go home, Uncle Victor told me to leave early. He said it was better for me to stay far away from that place. Maybe if I put some distance between me and that building, the haunting would stop. I agreed. I was scared. Charlotte wasn't just appearing in dreams anymore. She was showing up in real life. And it didn't seem like she was planning to leave me alone. When I was leaving, Uncle Victor walked with me to the bus station. We avoided the abandoned building completely, even though it meant taking a longer route. I didn't want to see it again. Didn't want to be reminded of how I met her. Then I remembered the symbols I had taken photos of on the building's walls. I showed them to my uncle and asked if he recognized them. He stared for a moment, like trying hard to remember something. Finally, he said, "Let's stop by my buddy Mr. Wilson's place. He's been living around here for ages, knows a lot about strange stuff like this." We caught Mr. Wilson just before he was about to leave his house. He stayed when he saw us, and Uncle Victor explained what had happened to me. I showed him the pictures. Mr. Wilson recognized the symbols immediately, and then, to my shock, he said, "I knew Charlotte." I was stunned. He explained that his mom had told him stories when he was younger. Back when the building was still in use, there had been a girl named Charlotte working there. One version of the story claimed that the building's owner himself was the cult leader. No one ever figured out what truly happened to her. I didn't know what to feel after hearing all that. Maybe Charlotte really was just looking for justice. Or maybe she just wanted a friend. Still, I left. My relatives even had the house blessed, hoping that would keep Charlotte's spirit, if that's what it was, from ever coming back. Back home in Arkansas, I didn't tell Grandpa right away. I waited to see if she'd appear again. That night she did. Even from far away, she found me in my dream, and this time she was angrier. Her face twisted, her eyes sharper, more violent. She chased me through a dark building, trying to kill me. When my mom woke me up, I was gasping for breath, heart pounding. I finally told them everything. Grandpa was calm. He said we needed to find out whether this was really the ghost of Charlotte, or something much worse pretending to be her. He brought out his old spiritual tools and began a ritual. It lasted over an hour. My mom and I watched closely. My dad was staying overnight at our farm to guard the crops, so it was just us. When the ritual ended, Grandpa brought out 2 bottles of anointed oil. One represented a soul, the other a dark spirit. He brought out a 3rd bottle for the healing part. He rubbed the oil on my forehead, around my eyes, the back of my neck, and my palms. Then he said, "Watch the bottles. Whichever one starts to boil, that's what's been haunting you." We waited. And then, the bottle representing the evil spirit began to bubble. My mom gasped. I shivered. Grandpa explained that something malevolent had sensed my depression the first time I lingered near that building. That spirit had used Charlotte's image to manipulate me. Its only goal? to disturb my peace and destroy me from within. I asked Grandpa what we should do to get rid of it. He said, "We'll take care of it. Trust me." He called Uncle Victor and told him to get a spiritual healer to bless some ashes. Those ashes needed to be spread in every corner of that building. Uncle Victor brought Mr. Wilson and even Aunt Mel, who came along holding a rosary. Meanwhile, back home, Grandpa anointed ashes with the oil from the bottle that represented the dark spirit. As he prayed over it, I suddenly heard Charlotte's voice begging me, "Stop him, please, you're my friend. I just want us to be together." I covered my ears, but her voice grew louder, deeper, until it morphed into a man's voice. A terrifying, mocking laugh filled the room. I screamed. I saw a dark shadow behind Grandpa, a demon. I pointed it out, but Mom just told me to close my eyes. "Don't look," she said. "It moves when you see it." Grandpa kept chanting louder and louder until, slowly, the voice faded and the figure vanished. When it was over, I was drenched in sweat, but the heaviness was gone. Grandpa had defeated it. He told me, "Never open yourself up to strangers, especially in abandoned places. That's where dark spirits wait, looking for broken souls to latch onto. Whenever you're troubled," he said, "pray. That's your best protection." Thank you to everyone who listened to my story. If you like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.